Hello everyone and welcome to a Week 2 edition of the Gridiron Football Player of the Week show. Jace LeJeune alongside Nick Mautone. Nick, another week, pretty much a full week of a lot of big stat lines around not only Louisiana but across the country. So football is starting a little bit of a rhythm, with another week in the book. So I'm pretty excited about this show, and we had a pretty good show last week. So what do you think about this show coming up, what they should expect?
I think we got a pretty good one. We had some more crazy stat lines. I think this show is a little more defensive and special teams oriented than last week, which will be nice, for those guys. Because last week it was just crazy offensive stat line after crazy offensive stat line, and it's a little more balanced out this week. But it's going to be a great show.
Yeah,
super excited to get into it.
Yeah, I think so too, Nick. And you just mentioned that, like you mentioned, a lot of offense. A lot of quarterbacks, a lot of offensive heavy show last week, but a little bit more versatility here with defense, special teams, and of course we'll get into it. But before we do, just want to thank again all the coaches that took time pretty much out of their day over the weekend, because I know you're fasting forward and focusing on the next opponent. You're watching film, you're getting ready for the next team. So I know just to take a couple minutes of your time and to fill these out really means a lot to us. So we appreciate, Coach, for filling out your Player of the Week. We had a lot of nominations, Nick. I think we've had about 35 nominations this week, and we involve different states too. So we had a lot of honorable mentions. So in order to find out all the other 25 honorable mentions, because we can only mention 10 on the show, make sure to go to our website, gridironfootballusa.com. In fact, when this video is uploaded, so will the article. So you'll get the best of both worlds at the exact same time. Before we go to Week 2, last week, Week 1, was our Player of the Week. It was Javion Johnson. He had a great performance, right? 8 touchdowns against Acadiana.
Almost 500 total yards as well. That was just a really crazy performance. That was video game numbers right there.
Yeah, that's like Javion Johnson. I mean, he had, I think, a similar type performance, 9 touchdowns, I think, in the semifinal game when he was our Player of the Week before. So Javion is our first Player of the Week 2-time winner. So he won it one time last year, and he won it this year. So congratulations to a great start for Javion Johnson. But we're also going to have some more history for our Player of the Week show this week. But we'll kick off with the top 10, where everybody's waiting for, Nick. So
that's right.
Let's get kicked off. Who starts off our list at number 10?
Coming in at number 10 is a local kid from right here in Baton Rouge, Episcopal running back Brayden George.
And this is a special one to me because I called that game. I was actually there, and Coach Bourgeois did the submission as well. But if Coach Bourgeois didn't submit this one, I was going to submit it for him because Brayden George was just that good that night. He touched the ball. He had 16 carries, Nick, for 231 yards and 4 touchdowns. And 3 of those 4 touchdowns went for 50 yards or more. So once Brayden George hit the open field, hit that second level, it was sayonara, goodbye, see you later, hasta la vista, whatever you can say. Because Brayden George, I mean, he was just explosive, and it's a huge reason why he's a Gridiron Football All-American for us. I mean, just what can you say about this great running back that Episcopal has in the backfield with a great performance like that to start off our list?
Now, coming in at number 9, we have our first out-of-state Player of the Week. We have Hueytown in Alabama, defensive tackle Caldwell.
And you mentioned it, too, before the show started. We're going to have some defense on this Player of the Week. So we're not just all about the quarterbacks and running backs. If you're a defensive lineman has won this Player of the Week before. It can happen again. And Caldwell had a top 10 performance from Hueytown, Alabama. Now, he had 3 tackles. It was like, okay, 3 solo, 3 assists. Like, okay, that's pretty good for a defensive lineman. But add in a TFL. Add an interception, which you don't really see from a defensive tackle, a forced fumble, a block punt, and then I think he got his hands on another one. So, pretty much 2 block punts in the football game, including an interception. Caldwell was very active for somebody that you don't really call their names a whole lot. Those run stuffers up the middle of defensive tackle. Very impressive stat line, especially somebody that's getting double teamed pretty much all the time.
That's right. Now, coming back to Louisiana at number 8, we have St. Edmund running back Kevon Johnson.
Very familiar name for his list, Nick. In fact, Kevon Johnson was our first ever Gridiron Football Player of the Week winner when we did this last year. And he's still only a sophomore. By the time his career is done, he may be like top 5, top 3 when it comes to rushing all time in the state of Louisiana. That's how good he really is. And he's already beating records in the program. So Kevon Johnson last week, in Dallas, because they actually played in Dallas this past week. 29 carries for 323 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's pretty much towards the top when it comes to top running backs in the state. And as far as the top, you'll see at the end of the year when it comes to top rushing performances of the year. So 323 yards, 4 touchdowns. Just another day at the office for Kevon Johnson.
That's absolutely insane. Now we head back to defense and out of the state of Louisiana. Coming in at number 7, we have Gavin Marcellin, a defensive end from Belen Jesuit Preparatory School in Miami, Florida.
Yeah, welcome to Miami, right? We got a Miami kid. Belen Jesuit Preparatory School in Miami, Florida. A really good program down in Miami. And Gavin, he's a really good football player. In fact, he's been a guy that we've written about and talked about here at Gridiron Football. He is a Division I player, so he's actually committed to Florida Atlantic, down the American, I believe.
That's right.
So a really good football player on the defensive line. He just took over that football game. What can you say about it, right? 4 sacks and 18 solo tackles. I mean, he was pretty much all over the field. He was unstoppable. He was pretty much unblockable in that game. Anytime you have 4 sacks and close to 20 tackles on the outside, that's saying something. And there's no wonder why the Owls like him so much.
That's crazy. 18 tackles is like an inside linebacker type stat.
Right.
Not somebody coming off the edge. You don't really see them rack up a whole lot of tackles.
No, you don't. Don't.
Moving up to number 6, we have Caleb Collins, the running back from Lakeview.
Andy Boone is the head coach now at Lakeview, and we've seen a lot of Andy Boone last year when it comes to his Gridiron Football Player of the Week list because they like to run the football every play. They don't punt. They onside kick. Coach Boone wants the ball the whole game. He doesn't want his defense to touch the field one time. So if he wants to carry the ball 48 minutes, he will. He will keep the ball for 48 minutes. That's just kind of who he is. Now, he had another running back that was actually on our honorable mention list. He could have made the top 10 too. But we're going to give the edge for one of them to be in the top 10, and that's Caleb Collins with his stat line. 17 carries, 288 yards, 4 touchdowns, and then add in 3 2-point conversions too. And that's very impressive for the Lakeview running back Caleb Collins. That's a lot of points on the board. That's just doing my mouth right. That's like 30 points right there between the 4 touchdowns and 3 2-point conversions. So very impressive.
So good math there. Now,
yeah, sometimes I can do it.
Now coming in the top 5, we have collegiate safety Hayden Moten.
Very familiar name for Gridiron Football that we've covered. Hayden's been a lot to our camps over the off season for our Gridiron Football League camps, and looks like that work over the off season with Gridiron has really helped him so far this early start to the season. Hayden, man, he was just a ball hawk in that football game. 4 tackles. He forced a fumble. He scored a touchdown. But the reason why he's in the top 5 is he had 3 interceptions by himself. So I know the other team was trying to throw it away from him, but you know how it is. I mean, he was just in the vicinity every single time. Cy Academy, they tried throwing the football away from him, but Hayden Moten, he was just everywhere on the football field being a ball hawk. 3 interceptions in that win for Collegiate. So how about Collegiate getting a pretty big win there?
Now at number 4, we have Wasserman athlete Richard Wilson Jr.
Wasserman, now we're going back up to North Louisiana with this one. Richard Wilson did pretty much a little bit of everything. So this was his stat line in the team's win over Northwood. And this is a really pretty good Northwood team. So 4 tackles, 4 assists, 2 PBUs, 3 interceptions, all right,
Ooh.
2 kickoff returns for touchdowns for 98 yards, including one that went for an 81-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. And then here's also the kicker, literally. He was the kicker, punter, and then played receiver as well. So you add in 4 tackles, 3 picks, a kickoff return for a touchdown. Pretty good night for my man Richard Wilson Jr.
That's just an all-around crazy performance, but it wasn't quite good enough to crack our top 3.
That's crazy. I mean, you feel like in a lot of other weeks, that would be like a week.
It'd be like a
number 1.
2. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So we're going to the top 3, Nick.
So at number 3, we have Chance Babineaux, the Karr Crow quarterback.
I talked to Coach Corville last year about Chance Babineaux, and he just pretty much told me that, Jace, I've coached some great players. As far as a freshman is concerned, Chance Babineaux, he is probably the best freshman I've coached since Kevin Falk, and that is saying a whole lot. And now he played wide receiver last year. This year he's playing quarterback, and who can blame him? Usually in high school, you put your best player at quarterback, and he is by far Karr Crow's best player. But he's shown he can throw the ball, though. 14 of 23 for 332 yards and 6 touchdowns, which is a school record. 56 yards on 8 carries as well from man Chance Babineaux. A lot of programs are already recruiting this young man. The LSUs of the world, you name Alabama, you name them, they're all having their focus and attention on Chance Babineaux. He's going to be a very special player, and he has his pretty much first record-setting performance of one of pretty much going to be many for the Karr Crow Bears.
That's right. Now coming in at number 2, we have Javion White, the Franklin Parish wide receiver, defensive back, and return specialist.
Yeah, you can make an argument that this could be number 1, and in a lot of weeks could have been number 1 with this stat line. So Javion impacted the game on offense and on special teams. So he had 5 catches, 172 yards, and 2 touchdowns as a receiver. That's the first part of it. Then add in 2 punt returns for 75 yards, including a 60-yard punt return for a touchdown, and then also had an 80-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. So if you're counting this at home, that's 2 receiving touchdowns, a kickoff return for a touchdown, and a punt return for a touchdown. 4 touchdown a night performance for Javion White. And then we go to number 1, Nick. So before we go to number 1, what do you think about the list so far?
I think the list, a lot of great performances just like last week. All the guys on here deserve it. Number 1, though, pretty crazy. It's actually our first of the year and maybe ever.
This is the first out-of-state ever. This is the first out-of-state winner.
Out-of-state number 1 player ever. We go to Westwood High School in Palestine, Texas, for their wide receiver, Kaysn Dial.
So Texas. So last year it was mostly a Louisiana Gridiron Football show. This year we told y'all it was going to be more of a national show. So even though Week 1 winner was a Louisiana guy again, Texas has stepped up to the plate and says we're going to bear that honor as far as a Gridiron Football Player of the Week, and it happens to belong to Jace and Nick from Westwood High School in Palestine, Texas. This was his stat line: 6 catches, 161 yards, and 3 touchdowns on offense. He also had 42 yards rushing as well. Had a kickoff return for an 80-yard touchdown. Also threw a pass for a 2-point conversion, and then he also can punt too. He had a 52-yard punt in the game, no return. So 3 touchdowns as a receiver. Threw a 2-point conversion pass at, throwing the football, and then had an 80-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. So he can throw, he can run, he can catch, he can punt, he can return kicks.
He can do everything.
He's Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
So that was pretty amazing. Congratulations, Jace and Nick. Great performance, very deserving. So congratulations to Jace, being our first ever Gridiron Football Player of the Week from the state of Texas. So congratulations, Jace. What a list this was, Nick.
Yeah, this was crazy. Last week was crazy. I'm sure next week will be just as insane.
Yeah, pretty good start. So we start off with 2 offensive guys. We start off with a quarterback from Louisiana, and we start off with a wide receiver from Texas. So appreciate y'all coaches for sending in your Player of the Week nominations. We really appreciate it. We'll be sending them out every single Saturday morning you'll get, because we'll be covering games Friday night. Just kind of letting everything, all the results happen after, and all the results, getting everything coming from all the coaches. So Saturday morning, expect an email from me and you'll probably get a text message from me as well. So if you have a player that you feel like is deserving of this Gridiron Football Player of the Week, doesn't matter where you're from. We even had submissions from Alaska that made our honorable mention. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
So it's around the country. So if you have a player that you feel like wants to be mentioned as our Gridiron Football Player of the Week list, please let us know. The email will be at the at the end of the show as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot out that email about getting your player involved for Gridiron Football Player of the Week. All these top 10 that you just heard, players that you just heard, they will be on our website at gridironfootballusa.com along with all the honorable mentions. Nick, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I don't really have anything. Just congratulations to everyone who made the list.
All right, guys, we'll see you on the same time next time. So 7 o'clock, you'll see us on Tuesday nights every single week, and we'll award the player of the week each and every week. And then obviously at the end of the year, we'll go and break down all of our player of the weeks and see who our player of the year is. So hopefully you'll enjoy another great, exciting week 3 of football action. We'll be back. For Nick Mautone, I'm Jace LeJeune. We'll see y'all next week for week 3 edition of the Gridiron Football Player of the Week.